Good morning, members. In today's little segment on fitting, I'm going to talk about fitting the driver. Now, driver is often a club that people think of when they think about getting fit. Sometimes it's the first club that anyone ever gets fit for is driver. And I used to say in fittings that everyone's goal in driver is the same. It makes it an easier club to fit. Everybody wants to hit it as far as they can and as straight as they can. But if you think a little deeper into that, someone's goals might be different. You get a player who hits it really far. Their main goal would be, well, I would give away some distance if I could get a tighter dispersion or more consistent ball flight. Someone who hits it fairly straight but doesn't hit it very far would be willing to sacrifice a little bit of accuracy to add distance. So when you're fitting driver, the two big elements that you look at are the head and the shaft. I'm going to start with talking about shaft. So fitting shaft encompasses the length of the shaft, the weight of the shaft, the flex of the shaft, and then most importantly, maybe the bend profile. And that's where in the shaft it bends most. So some shafts bend more down towards the tip, and some shafts are stiffer in the tip section and bend more up towards the handle. And the difference there is going to be manifested in ball flight. So the lower the kick point in the shaft, the higher the golf ball will go. If you think about the shaft coming to the golf ball, something that bends down at the tip is going to add more loft to the head at impact, and something that bends more up, say in the elbow, is going to deliver the club head a little flatter through impact. So the kick point can affect the feel of the shaft and actually how the ball comes out. Now, when we talk about the ball coming out, what we're looking for in driver fittings is what we call optimal launch conditions. And that's tricky because optimal launch conditions are different for different players. The example I use to explain this comes down to, say, throwing a ball. So if I handed you a baseball and said, I want you to throw that ball as far as you can, and then I took a ball and I threw it as far as I can, and I had, say, my 9-year-old take a ball and throw it as far as they can. The person who throws the ball the hardest will throw it the farthest by throwing it higher. If a 9-year-old tries to throw the ball up as high as I might, their ball's going to go up and come down and not travel as far. Likewise, my 9-year-old throws a good one, and then I try and throw it that low, my ball is going to fall out of the air earlier. So the optimal flight of a driver is dependent upon how fast you swing it. So everyone's optimal ball flight might be a little bit different. Another important element in driver fitting is the angle of attack. So a player that swings the club down and hits the ball on the way down into the ball might need more loft, because if you had say a 0 loft driver and you hit down 2 degrees, that ball is going to literally launch into the ground. If you have a player who swings up on the golf ball, well, they're probably going to need a little bit less loft on the driver to get the optimal launch conditions. A good example of this on the PGA Tour, I look at 2 players, Dustin Johnson and Rory McIlroy. Very similar club head speeds. They both swing it really fast, around 120 miles an hour, but they use very different lofted drivers. And the reason is because Rory hits a couple degrees up on the ball, so he's adding loft when he swings the driver into the ball. So he has, say, a 9-degree driver and hits up 2 degrees. That's a net of 11 degrees of loft that actually sees the golf ball. Versus Dustin Johnson, who swings a couple degrees down on the golf ball, hits a little down on it. So same club head speed. Dustin uses an 11-degree driver, Rory uses a 9-degree driver. But if you look at their numbers, they actually hit it through a pretty similar window. So because their speed is similar, their optimal windows are similar, but you need a different driver loft to get there. So measuring that angle of attack is an important element in getting the driver fit. A lot of people will say, well, I hit it really high, so I need lower lofted drivers. Well, now, why do we hit it really high? Maybe the shaft is the reason, or maybe a mishit is the reason. Maybe we need to move the length of the club to get the strike instead of on the toe into the middle, or instead of in the heel into the middle. Length fitting is very important too. And as you adjust length, it becomes very important to adjust weight. You see a lot of these modern drivers have got a weight port, or even some of them, like this Callaway model, have got 2. They've got a weight in the front and a weight in the back. And manipulating these weights can help change the feel of the golf club, which can make it more consistent. As you can tell, I started out trying to explain this simply, and the deeper you dive, the more details you find. And that's why fitters are so well versed in understanding, if I change the length of the shaft, that's also going to affect the weight. It's going to affect the flex. It might change the way the player feels, and then they might react, and now I need to change it again. So fitting is really, really important to get these launch conditions right, and also to get a driver that you're comfortable with. Just like I talked about in the iron video, at the end of the day, it has to be something that looks good to you at a dress. So aesthetics come into this. Fitting is a really fun process because if you do it correctly at the end, you can really see some different results. Hopefully you find a driver that you're confident in, that you hit longer, straighter, more consistently, more in the center of the face, because ultimately that's really the goal. If we can get it in the middle of the face and get that face pointed at the target, we're going to hit it longer and straighter. Thanks for bearing with me as I continue to try and explain all the things that go into club fitting. But we've got a lot of tools in the shop now. So if you're interested in starting this fitting process, even if we're not ready to buy a driver, that's okay. I would love to spend some time with you, explain what your driver is built to do, and then let you try some drivers that are built to maybe help you hit a little bit better. We'll talk to you soon.